figured I'd spend a few minutes out here sorting through some of this good copper that I got off of them 2 air conditioners. So I'm going to separate my number 1, which is this is number 1. From my number 2. To do that, I'm just going to cut it all off and then pick it up, number 1, number 2. I've been cutting my number 1 into smaller pieces so it doesn't take up so much room in my bucket. Brass. What I cut up just now, even though I have 3 different sizes, had the bigger tubing with no slag on it, no aluminum on it. Have a smaller piece of, it is also like a tubing. There is no slag on it, no crap. This is like a bare bright wire. It's heavy. You can't, if you bend it, it stays into shape. So all 3 of these items, even though they're all different sizes, are going to be all number 1 copper. None of this will be bare bright unless it was bare bright. And this is obviously not bare bright. You can tell the difference very quickly. But so I'm just kind of chopping it off and then separating my number 1 coppers from what would be my number 2 coppers. So nice clean, and these have the soldering joints on them, as you see. So number 1 copper, number 2 copper. Number 1 clean, number 2. Doesn't have to be bright orange or anything like that. It can even be green. So I have some of these parts that came off that air conditioner out there, and some of them are just bigger than I want them to be, so I'm cutting them into smaller pieces. To be honest with you, they don't take up as much room in the bucket, so I love what making them smaller does. And not to mention, wow, when you grab that bucket, you know you grabbed hold of something, because it is stacked slam full. You don't have a bunch of space because it's all compact like that. That again, all number 1. All number 1. Some places, I will tell you, some places, because this has had oil in it, we'll count it number 2. My yard doesn't seem to matter, so I'm counting every bit of that as number 1. Add it to my collection. These big cutters right here that I have are awesome. I can cut through it all. Cut right up close and small stuff. See, it looks like we're gonna have some number 2 right there. That's all number 2. And we'll cut that piece off. I love these things. I put them in my vise. And a piece of brass. Another piece of number 2. Cut me a piece of number 1 off there before this. If I cut it in front of the slag, and then cut that last nugget off for number 1, and this is going to go into my shred. So yeah, I have to pick up some of it on the floor. But number 1 and number 2, number 1 and number 2 copper, it is very easy to tell the difference. All right, so that's going to be number 2 no matter what. So if you separate it, you're obviously going to make more money on your number 1. I try to personally make sure when I'm cutting, whatever it is that I have, I want to make sure that it's number 1 if possible. See, that has some patina on it. That doesn't matter. There's no paint. Patina does not hurt anything. And like I say, cutting my pieces small because you can really put some copper in a bucket now, y'all, if you cut it short. I'll pick it up from the ground, but that's okay. See, I've got a piece of 1 there, and then I got another piece of number 2 there. Anytime I come across them, I try to cut them off as small as I can. We don't want a bunch of number 2 now. Also, wherever a pipe ties into another pipe, that's going to be considered number 2. So I'll get as much as of that number 1 as I can. Cut that little piece off of there. That's a number 2. That's a number 1. That pipe is still a number 1, but that piece where it joins into, that little piece, is going to be my number 2. And then I have another piece with slag here in the middle. You want to make sure that you don't cut into that slag, even if it's drizzling down the shaft of that thing. If it's a foreign object, paint or solder, it's going to be considered number 2. Yeah, I got a bunch of stuff falls on the ground, but I just keep reaching down and picking it up every time. Take me forever. So I just grab big chunks like this. And with these things set up on this, move this up a little bit. With these set up on this, come on. I don't have to unmantle anything. I can just grab these things, set them in my cutters, and just start cutting. As long as you have your vise set right. Mine just moved a little bit. This one. Yeah. Good and tight. Good and tight. Good and tight. Then I just start cutting these pieces off. Yes, these cutters are absolutely a lifesaver when it comes to processing copper, because you're not going to be able to do all that with a pair of cutters. Very difficult to do with just a pair of cutters. If you got this set up on your vise, you can make quick work of this. I believe that's paint. It's not patina. That's paint. Could I clean that off and get away with it being number 1? I absolutely could, and it's a very small piece. So I'll either take a piece of sandpaper. Actually, that paint came off pretty easy. Yeah, oh yeah. I can almost take it off just rubbing it. Look at that, I've already got it somewhat clean. That's just paint. I'll put that in my number 1. It's a big old chunk that you definitely don't want to be number 2. And here, lots of patina. Lots of patina. Problem is, oops, my cutters won't get in between there. So I'll get what I can and set this aside for my Sawzall, and I'll run my Sawzall right down there and put that into my dirty brass pile. For now, I'm just going to set it aside. So basically, I just wanted to give you an idea how I process my copper when I get big pieces like this. I'm not taking a pair of cutters by any means. See, I've got a nugget right there that has to be cut off. That will be number 2. Yeah, this is definitely the way to go. So yeah, that was a piece of number 2, and that's all I have to throw away with a number 2 with the way I cut it. Number 2, and a big old chunk of number 1. If you're gonna do copper and you get quite a good amount of it, you want to make the most. You want to always make the most of it. If you don't already have a vise and a big pair of these loppers that you can turn your copper from number 2 to number 1 just by cutting that little nugget off. Counting that piece as number 1, keeping all this big stuff. I mean, guys, number 2 and keeping all your big stuff as number 1. Number 1. Make that money. So yeah. Got a little piece that I have to cut off. I don't have that tool with me right now. No big deal. I'll cut that off, set it aside. But everything there, except for a couple small pieces, I turned into number 1 copper instead of sending it as number 2 because of them 2 little joints. Number 1 is where the money's at, not number 2. Anyways, everybody, hope everybody's had an amazing week. It is hump day. I'm blessed. I feel blessed. The weather's starting to turn around and get real nice. Just thought I'd come out here and say hello to everybody and separate just a little bit of this copper that I had on this table. Super busy with my other channel. Not a lot of videos over there, but we got Paul out doing some work for me. He just replaced a rubber roof on a house for a lady. And anyway, so I did a little bit of video taping over there. I haven't made any videos or anything like that, but by all means, stay blessed. Hope you all have a good week. It's only Wednesday, so let's get past today and see what Thursday, Friday brings. If you're living out there in the middle states there where you're having them tornadoes, God bless you and be safe. And my prayers are with you. Other than that, what's next? What's next? What's next? Scrapping with Grandpa. I'll get the rest of this later.